you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Folks, Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the only things that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. Hey, wonderful to have you guys on. By the way, the prior two shows of the show, we had some audio difficulties, and I couldn't even hear my own voice. There was a little bit of muck-ups on the sound that came through. So if you hear that and you're like, why does it sound a little different? That's what that was. But we got to fix today. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. We have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about two of his books called Until the End of Love, and his book we'll lead off with called Deadly Ground. I wonder if they're tied together, because most of my marriages were The End of Love and Deadly Grounds. Maybe they're together. We'll find out. But Thomas W. Starbuck is on the show with us today. We're going to get into it with him. And remember, we're the oldest podcast still broadcasting daily. No one else is doing that from the handful that's left from like the 2005, 2008 era. And we'll be 17 years old in August in 1 month. So let's get into it with Thomas. We're going to find out more about him, his insights, and these lovely books he's been writing. He's the creative force behind Deadly Ground, embarked on a compelling journey of exploration and imagination back in 2006. With a keen eye on the real-world threats posed by bird flu and SARS viruses, while stationed in the Southeast Asia serving in the Marine Corps, Starbuck delved into the realm of speculative fiction to envision a world gripped by pandemic chaos. Central to his narrative is the enigmatic figure, A.B., a chimeric individual, or chimeric? I'll get corrected. Chimeric, there it is. Embodying a fusion of virology and genetic expertise. Through A.B.'s eyes, readers are drawn to a gripping tale of survival and renewal as the protagonist embarks on a quest to seek out the survivors and chart a path towards repopulating Earth in the wake of destination. His other book is Until the End of Love, which we'll get to later in the show. Welcome to the show. Thomas, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you, Chris.
I was getting Crimea mixed with that chimeric, so that was kind of throwing me there a little bit. So give us your .coms, Thomas. How can people find you on the interweb, sir?
Right, www.deadlyground.com.
And I think that's my wife's divorce attorney's website, too. No, I'm just kidding. Doing marriage jokes. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside Deadly Ground?
Yeah, interesting. A good intro. Deadly Ground was an evolution in my experience, my life experiences. What I experienced over in Southeast Asia and Vietnam was bird flu and some SARS. And I noticed under some pretty uninhabitable, some conditions just in the life of the people there, that we were vulnerable as humans to virus that potentially could have decimating effects. So over time, I kind of developed that sense of what if there was this apocalyptic virus that wiped out primate life on Earth. And so that was kind of the seed that brought me to Deadly Ground, which was originally published in 2017. And what I found amazing was right after publishing, we had the COVID-19 breakout, and it reinforced the storyline in Deadly Ground. It kind of laid out what not only could happen, but what's plausible. And so the story of Deadly Ground then becomes the story of an individual, the protagonist, A.B., and he happened to be a chimeric, which a chimeric is a known medical condition, and what that consists of is that if twins are conceived and only one develops and is birthed, that one that is birthed maintains both sets of DNA. And so a chimera is typically savant in many disciplines, whether that's mathematics, artwork, whether it's mechanical, whatever that might be. And AB possessed most in all these different savant talents, and then became, along with his friend Clayton Ramsey, he went to become the head virologist and genealogist and at the CDC. He decides that he's going to take a little break from all of his work. He goes to his home that he's built by hand in California, out on the coast, and he gets a call from Clayton saying that AB needs to get back to Atlanta immediately because they detected a virus in Africa, which is more than anything that he could understand. And AB gets back, and the different satellite imagery that they're getting people are being affected. And what happens is that within minutes, they are reduced to dust. In other words, the virus that attacks them is extremely viral and absolutely takes control, and they are reduced to dust. So you see visions of cities that are establishments there that were once days earlier populated are now just swirling dust. It's air transmitted. So now it becomes part of what is taking hold into the world. So you have quite a bit of now governments and everybody trying to deal with this. And as it turns out, in fact, it wipes out all primate life on Earth except for AB, who has compiled a fairly substantial list of chimera in the world. So that was one of the things he was trying to do, is understand more about himself. So he finds himself literally out on the street in Atlanta with cars, everything decimated, that he then realizes he has survived and decides that then it's his job to go find additional survivors by fixing up a truck. And then he has an adventure where he goes all the way across the states. He has several stops where he has some false alarms, and he realizes that he owns everything, that everything now is his possession. There's a scene where he ends up in Denver and goes to the Denver Mint and loads up a pallet of gold bars and what have you and whatnot, but gets back to California, finds himself then dealing with the loneliness that sets in, and he finds himself abandoned. He's been unable to contact. So you have this sense of what it would be like to be absolutely alone. And one of the things that was part of my development was in Scripture, the book of Job, which Job was a character that virtually lost everything, but he was able to continue having a faith in a higher authority. And that faith in a higher authority is what sustained him. And literally, he then survived and not only regained what he lost, but more than what he had lost. And that was what inspired AB as he kind of went forward in the process of dealing with loneliness.
A name like AB, like when I was reading the bio, it was kind of twisting me a little bit. Like, see, and that's his name. Like, is that a name that types that they use in that environment? Or?
Actually, yeah, his name is Adam Bradley, and I just reduced it to AB.
Oh, okay, all right.
So just
that's
gave him the right.
All right, then I get it. So when did you start writing science fiction? It's science fiction, right? When did you start writing in this genre, and when did you know you kind of had the knack to make a book for it?
And again, like I say, it was evolutionary in my experience. One thing led to the other as I have a greater idea, expanded on it, amplified it, I'd make notes, and then decided that it was time that I thought this was a good enough story that it deserved to be a motion picture, was my original vision. And I worked with a woman who helped me write a screenplay. And when I found out how difficult it was to attract production money for an independent, we converted the actual screenplay into Deadly Ground, the novel. And then I had it published in 2017.
Ah, and it did really well. Now, what made you interested in writing this next book that we're going to be talking about, Until the End of Love? And is that kind of a whole different genre and stretch than what you had before?
Yeah, it is. The thing that I found that as I've evolved in my own spirituality, there's been a lot of talk recently. You've probably seen some news items appearing on this 3-eye atlas, which a year ago was the third discovered intergalactic object. And Avi Loeb, who is the head of astrophysics at Harvard University, along with Michio Kaku, who I have followed for decades as an astrophysicist, were pointed out all these different anomalies from this which gave me the sense that we're not alone, and that then I started trying to realize what was the source, what was the source of matter, what's it all about? That question: are we alone? Where did we come from? All of that came into my focus, and what I determined was that actually there has been no astrophysics that have ever been purported or written or documented which gives you that sense of thought. What creates a thought in your mind? Where did it come from? What was the origination of that? And what I finally have come comfortable with is that the whole sense of consciousness is basically love. That it's it's a infinite flow from a higher authority, and that it can be tapped into through a belief, through faith. So in other words, you can't prove it. And you have all the atheists out there in the world saying this, that, and the other thing. God doesn't exist. It all started from nothing. But the reality is that there is a design, and all of that comes to us through faith, and that the higher authority is just simply the fountainhead of love. And that the reason that we are unable to know without doubt, with total proof that there is a higher authority, that there is a God, is that the God keeps himself from us through that sense of wanting reciprocal love. He offers it freely. Love is a free gift, and that it's our faith response to that and reciprocating that creates the peace in our lives. And so I think all of us desire to have love in our lives, to be in love, fall in love, know love. And with that being said, I realized that love is an infinite experience, and that it's our awareness that is malleable. So we can adjust our awareness to heighten or deny the actual love that's freely given. But the higher authority, or the fountainhead of love, is the one that is seeking reciprocation. I go back to my days in formation when I went through diaconate formation for the Diocese of Des Moines to become a permanent deacon. One of the things I took advantage of was the Liturgy of the Hour that was presented every morning, has for centuries, with the monks of Conception Abbey, a Benedictine abbey in northwest Missouri. Going there, I recall on Saturday mornings at the vigil service, and they have the Liturgy of the Hours, which are times of the day where they gather for prayer. But the opening hymn was, "O fountainhead of love supreme, and maker of the cosmic frame, one Godhead of the universe, three persons guiding, yet the same." And with that kind of as a sense, I started realizing that love is infinite, that it is something that is freely given, that if we become aware of it through faith, then we find a peace in a loving God who only wants us to love. And with that being said, I decided that there's no restrictions as to who can fall in love. And so Until the End of Love is a story of an age gap relationship. A woman and a man, he's 53, she's mid-30s. They meet at an airport, and then they develop this love over time as twin flames. And that was something that really I put my heart and soul into, because it became such a reality that I find such deep peace in knowing that my faith response to the Godhead, I have found myself a more loving, caring person.
And it's interesting when we write about these things, we tend to improve ourselves because we ponder these topics and see about these topics. Tell us about some of the protagonists that are in the book about love.
Until the End of Love, the protagonist he's an author, he's 53 years old, he's single, had never been in a relationship, and is just one of those people that have gone through, he's published several books, and she happens to be, as she calls herself, the makeup artist to the stars, and mid-30s, attractive, and she and he meet while he's waiting for a flight to Seoul, South Korea for a book fair, and she's waiting to take on a production. So they both were heading towards going first to Los Angeles, then he on to Seoul. And over that 4-hour flight, they discover each other. And from there, it builds to a twin flame relationship that moves forward, and it becomes something very eternal. One of the closing lines that I used in Deadly Ground, after he had been through so much for so long, was until he realized what the realities were. He said, until then, the love of God is all I need. Your love for me is all I need. Wow. And so I guess what I'm saying is I've had a lot of life experience, but I've really discovered just through exploration this desire for peace in my life, avoiding the chaos that is so prevalent in the world that we live in today. I choose peace, and the way I choose peace is that through faith in a loving Almighty God.
Faith is always a good thing to have, they say. I hear that from people. So what are some approaches that you use when you write? How do you develop your characters, set your storylines and stuff? What are some of the processes that work for you found?
Yeah, I think it's a lot intuitive. I like to create through meditation and thought, get an idea, amplify it, and then I use a lot of Post-it notes, write little this, that, comments, what have you. And then, like for instance, in Until the End of Love, once I completed the storyline, I did it as an audio, and then I took the audio, ran it through AI into a narrative, and then published it as a novel.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So did AI help you edit it? Did you use AI to edit? Some people do that now. It's great feedback.
I didn't use AI to edit it, but the publisher that I worked with on this was a romantic herself and a writer, and she and I collaborated to create a polished narrative after I presented the audio to her.
That's the way to get it done, right? You always have got an editor, but you always got to figure out how to preserve your voice too, as well. Yeah, good stuff there. What do you hope people come away with when they read your books? What do you hope their journey experience is?
I hope they see that life is full of challenges and that we all face difficulties, some more extreme than others, but we're never tested beyond our ability to endure. And by enduring challenge, a lot of times that strengthens faith and belief and increases a greater faith. And so I would hope that people, as they go through Deadly Ground and see the challenges faced by AB and how he overcame and how he succeeded moving forward is inspiration for people to see that life is worth living and that there is an almighty source of love that if you tap into it, creates peace and calm in your life, and you can share that with others around you.
What a great message. What a great, wonderful story and thing to discuss there. So wonderful stuff. Anything future books coming out in the future?
Yes, actually, I've begun outlining a prequel to Deadly Ground. The storyline in Deadly Ground is that apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic, but now with the Three-Eye Atlas and Michio Kaku and some of the things that he's put out, and Avi Loeb regarding the potential for extraterrestrial life or presence. Yeah, that's something I want to start threading into a storyline that would tie into Deadly Ground as a prequel.
This would be exciting to see all the stuff that you have going into it and all the future books that you come out. When did you officially start writing? Did you write when you were young? Did you write when you retired? I mean, what did you like to read too?
Yeah, I never was a great reader. There were certain novels and fiction that I liked, but nothing really. Some people are voracious readers. I casually wrote. I always have been more of a meditator, contemplator, and I came out of 32 years of financial services, and that in itself was a challenging experience just by virtue of all of the ups and downs of markets and everything else. And I was always seeking more of a peaceful environment, a peaceful life. So I never really did anything other than just work towards developing that on a day-to-day basis in my life experience.
Wonderful thing and all that good stuff. Any final thoughts as we go out, or give people your final pitch to pick up your books and .com so they can reach you at?
I did have a story I'd like to share as we close, because a lot of what I've said is all comes from the person's attitude and what they develop as their attitude. Is it positive? Is it negative? How do you develop a more peaceful being? And I mentioned all of a sudden I see a Buddhist monk. He happens to be in Midtown Manhattan, and he's dressed in his burgundy and burnt orange robes and walking around Midtown, and it's about noon hour, and he's getting a little hungry, so he sees a hot dog stand there. And he approaches the hot dog stand and looks down, and the vendor says, "Can I help you?" And he says, "Yes, I want one with everything." And so the vendor picks up a warm bun and puts a hot dog in there and loads it with sauerkraut, mustard, ketchup, pickles, relish, and wrapper hands it to the monk, and the monk reaches in his robe and hands the vendor a $20 bill. The vendor takes the $20 bill, folds it, and puts it in his apron, and proceeds to call on the next customer there and serves the next customer. The monk continues to stand there. And then he serves the third, and finally looks over and asks the monk, he says, "I see you standing there. What are you waiting for?" And the monk says, I'm waiting for change. And the vendor looks at him and says, "You, among all of us gathered here, don't know that change comes from within?"
That's funny. Yeah. That's pretty smart. That monk's making a couple bucks there on the site. I love it. What a great story there. Maybe you should build a book around that story somehow. I don't know. Might be, some motivational book or something. Did you write that story, or is that one you picked up?
On one I had heard at one point along the way, and it's always stuck with me because it's so true that change comes from within.
Change comes from within.
We have to, we have to choose to change.
Yeah, that's why I always have to bang on the pop machine, because change comes from within. Yeah, get it?
Yeah, a good way of putting it.
Built on your story. Maybe we got another plot. Thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, Thomas. And thanks for getting your books off the ground and rolling as an author. And now you're just on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, I'm hoping to attract some interested either traditional publishing or production people. I think we got great marketable content, and I would love to work with anyone on moving the projects forward.
Let's do it. Let's get that taken care of. So, Thomas, thanks for being on the show. Thanks to our audience for being here. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places in it. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.